Your press office tweeted out that it was state-sponsored terrorism, which, I mean, Governor, I do have to ask you about that. That sort of thing makes our politics worse.
Yeah.
It is a barrier to entry for a lot of people. When
I
you
agree
say,
with that.
When you say a boy can become a girl. What I do have a problem with is if you go on Stephen Colbert and say you're worried there won't be a legit election in 2028.
But I feel that. I mean, if I believe that.
Do you really believe that?
I really believe that.
But then why are you running?
Yesterday, California Governor Gavin Newsom published a nearly 2-hour debate with Ben Shapiro. On several occasions, Newsom conceded to Shapiro. We'll start with a moment early on in the interview when Shapiro called out Newsom's press office for referencing ICE as state-sponsored terrorism.
Into two separate narratives, both of which I think are untrue. One was a narrative that was immediately pushed by the Trump administration and Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, that she was a domestic terrorist who was attempting to run over officers with her car and was legitimately trying, not just this officer, but multiple officers. That was the original statement. I said at the time, I thought that was untrue. And then your press office tweeted out that it was state-sponsored terrorism, which, I mean, Governor, I do have to ask you about that. That sort of thing makes our politics worse.
Yeah.
I mean, it does.
Yeah.
I mean, our ICE officers obviously are not terrorists.
Yeah.
A tragic situation is not state-sponsored terrorism.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Later, Shapiro pressed Newsom on the topic of trans kids, and Newsom didn't put up much of a fight.
There's so much hate and bigotry, so much condemnation,
this is the part where I start to object.
Yeah.
Okay, the idea that
you may not be spewing it.
No.
Like some others. Trust me.
But
this is the business they're in.
There are lots of terrible people who say lots of terrible things, but
yes.
It is not an act of bigotry to say that a boy cannot become a girl, nor should my children be taught in K through 12 public schools that a boy can become a girl.
Yeah.
That is not an act of bigotry. That's an act of rationality and biological simplicity.
I respect your point of view. And,
but
good people, good people disagree on this.
The problem is I do think that on an electoral level, to go to the politics, it is a barrier to entry for a lot of people. When
I agree with that.
When you say a boy can become a girl. And then just on a realistic.
And by the way, I respect if that's your barrier to then listening to people on a myriad of other issues, so be it.
We'll get into some other clips where he did push back, but Brett, on these, how do you think Newsom handled that conversation?
I think it's one of those things where a lot of people are going to seize on that holistically, but not listen to and I don't care about Gavin Newsom one way or another, but like on the merits, like he's putting it in a specific context that's like Ben Shapiro and Gavin Newsom talking to like very smart talkers. And he said, Gavin Newsom in that scenario was talking about how it's a barrier to entry for a lot of people. He's basically acknowledging the rhetorical position of the culture war and its existence and its effectiveness. And I think we all know that that is why the right globs onto it. I personally think that the conversation that most people have about transgender anything in this transgender for everybody is just like intentionally talking past each other. And it's very difficult to get people to actually have a conversation. And I think that's what Gavin Newsom is trying to do. I think if you take an even bigger step back, Gavin Newsom he did this with Charlie Kirk and he's doing it with Ben Shapiro. I think he's trying to kill Ben Shapiro. I'm just putting the two together. But no, I think
he did do an episode with Steve Bannon, and Bannon is alive. So
for now, have you seen that guy? He's melting before our eyes.
That's true.
But no, I think that he's just trying to do the thing that he does. Like if you see Gavin Newsom in a room, he did an interview with Sean Hannity, and Sean Hannity is smiling because he can't believe that he likes the guy. The question is this a charm offensive with Gavin Newsom? The Gavin Newsom soundbite should be, is this a charm offensive or offensive charm? Like, does it work or is it annoying because his name is in neon and he's got like vintage baseball gloves behind him in his shot? Like, it's a little too clever by half a lot of the time, but that's Gavin Newsom. I think now's the time for a lot of this to happen. Right now's the time, just in the overall cycle, it's kind of coming to an end before we get into midterms, but this has been the time to engage with the right on a lot of stuff, to just see, to get a heat check, a temperature check, and also to gain goodwill in the meantime before you may eventually just turn on them. But I don't think Gavin Newsom like those clips are just Gavin Newsom in the conversation, which I tried to listen to at double speed. It's very difficult with Ben Shapiro being one of the participants, but you just see, I feel like Gavin Newsom's kind of learning how to do this. And he did stand up for a lot of tax-based stuff and a lot of other things. But I didn't quite get to the billionaire part yet.
Yeah. Well, there were other moments where Newsom did push back. For example, he was eager to defend his state's record.
Now, I've talked to major tech founders who say today that they would not, if they had to do it over again, they would not found in California, specifically because of the regulatory and tax structure.
Well, let's talk about the largest startup in world history. Could have chosen any place to open its headquarters just recently. OpenAI and the folks there decided to open in San Francisco. I mean, it runs.
That's where the talent is. I mean, there's no question.
Therein lies the formula for success. California has more Fortune 500 companies than it's ever had in 20 plus years.
To be fair, you have 40 million people who live here.
Hold on, but 4 years ago that wasn't the case. Today it's the case. We have 58 Fortune 500 companies. When I started, it was 49. We're the 6th largest economy. Now we're the 4th largest economy. You look at the 3.1 million jobs that have been created since I've been governor. You can look across the spectrum. I'm not denying its challenges, but those persist and exist in every other state. You move to a state that has higher insurance rate, higher car insurance, not just home insurance, has higher property taxes. Many of these red states, they have higher murder rates, lower wages, lower productivity, less innovation and entrepreneurialism. They're less contributory to the GDP of this country.
Newsom also called out Shapiro for stating that it's irresponsible to suggest Trump could attempt to jury rig an upcoming election.
What I do have a problem with is if you go on Stephen Colbert and say you're worried there won't be a legit election in 2028.
But I feel that. I mean, if I believe that.
Do you really believe that?
I really believe that.
But then why are you running? Or why would you consider running?
I want to make sure because we have agency, we can shape the future. It's not something to experience.
But I didn't believe it when President Trump said it. So President Trump said in 2020.
I think he wants, I believe in it. But he tried to.
Do you truly believe that President Trump is going to try to run in 2028?
No, I believe that he'll try to wire the outcome in 2028.
Or
you saw what Trump tried to do.
Well, I mean, what is the thing that you think?
I mean, he's dialing up for 12,000 votes in Georgia. He ended up pardoning. I mean, were you supportive of every one of these pardons?
I'm not justifying.
Try to light democracy on fire.
I'm not justifying what he said to Brad Raffensperger over in Georgia.
I'm concerned about what Donald Trump did after January 6th, the degree that he went to ultimately try to stay into office. Yes, I'm concerned about the actions he's taken, not any one of them from the midterm redistricting, but the sum total of many of them.
It's a lot here.
What do you think about that, Jordan? What's your take
about the election part?
Yeah.
I think Democrats see it as an effective scare tactic. But I think if you were really to just for 30 seconds, consider how that would even look to try to cancel an election in 2028 or 2026. People are worried about it in this year. That's a state decision. I mean, my colleagues and I who work in this world, other people who have worked for different candidates. I was talking to one a couple nights ago just about how reckless it is that people are being like, well, there's just not going to be an election this year. How would that work? With what mechanism could Trump even do that? States hold their own elections. And you just saw Indiana refuse to do a mid-decade redistricting at Trump's request, despite his threats. And now you want me to think that every red state's going to cancel their election? Democrat states won't. Blue states won't cancel their elections. So what does that look like? How are you going to do it? States hold their own elections. And I think that's scaremongering. I'm sure it's motivating, but I don't think it's responsible.
Yeah, I don't get the irresponsibility of it. I don't understand why you think it's irresponsible just because of what people's normal reaction to it would be, which is like, well, it seems strong. Seems like a strong thing to say. It's like, well, I think you're going to cheat. I think you're a cheater. And it's looking straight in Ben Shapiro's face. And it gets Ben Shapiro to be like, well, I don't really support what he did when those things that are the reason you're saying it. I don't support what he did that gives you every kind of inclination. And also Trump is saying, what if there's no election? It's like, I take you seriously and I'm going to fight you on it. The question, like, then why are you running? That he paused to be like faux effective. It's like, I'm running to fix that thing. I don't care about Gavin Newsom either way. I think he's dreamy. I think that's like a non-zero effect. I think it's a positive effect that he's dreamy, and I think it alienates a lot of people that he's dreamy. But like, here's a photo that I think really sums up everything you need to know about Gavin Newsom. He cozies up to the right. That is Don Jr.'s ex, Kim Guilfoyle, that Gavin Newsom was married to until he cheated on her and dumped her. poor Don Jr., his other ex-wife is dating Tiger Woods. It's not easy for her. But like, look at that photo that really is emblematic of the thing that a lot of people are going to rally around, is like Gavin Newsom is this guy. And the counter argument that a lot of Democrats have is that he hates Republicans more than he loves billionaires, and he just hates them. And we'll see that play out when he eventually does run for president. And really what he's doing is putting face to, what's that?
He's gonna love those billionaires. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, and he's gonna have to stand for things like, and he needs to answer a lot of questions that I've been asking and Jon Stewart's been asking. Whereas like Democrats need to do, if we're gonna do a wealth tax, if we're gonna do all this increased taxes, you got to say where it's going and how you're good at spending it. And I don't think that's too difficult. I think you have to actually physically do it. And then the more wine caves you've been in, the harder it is to sell to the American people. I'm just being clear about that. But I like seeing Gavin Newsom go face to face, because the first 15 minutes of it is just him being a person. And that is disqualifying for many, many people. He's just lulling Ben Shapiro into this, like, well, we're not going to hate each other at the end of this, back and forth.
I don't really get excited about the prospect of a Newsom 2028 campaign. I do think if he runs, he will likely get the nomination, just because this is something he's been preparing for 10 years. And he is really good at the retail politics. This is something I've long maintained. I've seen it in person. I've heard it from friends who have seen it in person. The guy's really, really good at the politics side.
Retail,
yes,
hand-to-hand politics.
The guy will meet you and remember your name an hour or a week later. He is a maniac. But that stuff matters, and it leaves a lasting impression with people. This isn't to vouch for his policies. That's just something that is hard, if not impossible, to replicate if you don't have it. And he's got it.
And no one else in the Democratic Party, like, who's talented? AOC, Gavin Newsom. We'll see Tallarico versus Jasmine Crockett. Those are two wildly different brands of politics. And like at that level that's having success right now, the folks are kind of looking around.
Pete probably.
Pete is really he's another side of that same coin.
Yeah, he's got the retail.
But it's more like homespun, and it's not as like, I'm a Dapper Dan man, like slick your hair back kind of stuff. But,
yeah.
All right, we'll see.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.